Hi, hello. This is my name. A lot of my stuff appears in a former name, but we can talk about it later. Um, so my talk is called "What Medieval Spirituality Taught Me About Intimacy in Larp." Uh, just very short, I'm an artist. I ran a role-playing children's camp for about 15 years, and I'm also studying to be a lay theologian, a quite clumsy one for the record. And over the past years, I've been exploring how spiritual communities from the Christian Middle Ages were trying to wrap their heads around matters of intimacy. And this journey has been slowly undermining and rewiring the way that I think about LARP, a practice that to me is about practicing intimacy. This journey has taught me that I'm in fact always in ecstasy, that LARP starts with a U, not with an I, that trust is better than consent, and that intimacy is impossible to practice, but it can be joyous to attempt it anyway, especially with your pals. Easy, here we go. Also, just to be mindful of the time, I might stick my head in the text from moment to moment. Am I? Yeah, that should have been the slide. So in my work, I host and guide role-play-like experiences and also make publications that invite the reader into exercises for senses and language. The pictures you will see here are mostly from my work. I take inspiration from the kind of mystical literature from the Middle Ages that people wrote in their native language. So examples of this are the English Cloud of Unknowing, written by an anonymous monk, or the writings from the Beguine communities, which were semi-official networks of laywomen living in spiritual communities. These texts are usually collections of intimate poems, visions, theological speculations, and conversations. We may assume that these are merely records of highly private experiences of individuals, and that's that. But when we look at the life of these texts, to whom they were written, we see that they are more practice manuals that are meant to circulate in peer networks between other practitioners, monks, beguines, lay people. Behind me, you see the Latin manuscript. It's a later manuscript of the Mirror of Simple Souls, a 7-step do-it-yourself manual for mystical union with the world, originally written in Old French by a laywoman, Marguerite Porret, around the 1300s. This book can be a talk of its own. Marguerite was later sentenced to death by the Inquisition for spreading this book, a book that claims how you don't really need the church for salvation, and also salvation is possible in your life. So we already have some subversive and DIY practices that are being circulated against the grain of dominant narratives of spiritual imagination. And it's of course hard not to draw a similarity between them and LARP's subculture methods of knowledge circulation through open access scripts, self-hosted workshops, and zines. A central theme in the spiritual writings, and the one that I'd like to expand for the rest of the talk, is how one's body and sense of self is challenged when it tries to be intimate with someone or something that seems entirely other to oneself. And we can call this challenge of the body ecstasy and the ecstatic. So in medieval spiritual imagination, the body is both the subject that experiences the ecstatic, but also the place through which the ecstatic occurs. For a body to be in ecstasy means becoming a paradox. Ecstasis literally means outside of the body, so being in ecstasy means to be inside and outside. And it's less of an experience that contrasts the everyday, but rather a gentle yet strong admission that we are constantly spilling into the world and inviting the world to spill into us. What we assumed as an inside reveals itself as an outside, no separation. As much as there is a body and not just a fiction of language, the body might be a shifting choir of memory, dust, air, minerals, nutrition, radiation, your voice, my thoughts, all these things raining in and out of our senses, pores, and hidden depths of our hearts. The body is always in ecstasy, like right now. And of course, this body radically entangled with the world can sound quite contemporary to our ears, and indeed there has been some flourishing conversation between medieval studies of religion and feminist and disability and minority perspectives, as well as ecological and decolonial voices from the global south. But what about LARP? So to me, LARP is a practice of intimacy, more precisely an intimacy with the other. The other is the eternal stranger, someone who I can never fully grasp and never fully reduce, and at once cannot help to recognize and admit that it is present with me. Role-playing is often called an empathy machine, but I agree with Karina Erdmann's critique against understanding empathy as self-recognition in the other. Because what about intimacy with a stranger, with the one who in whom I cannot possibly recognize myself? When I role-play, I leap into the unknown with what the cloud of unknowing might call little blind thrusts of love. We can say that this is an alibi for interaction, but for me, this is a midwife to the ecstatic. A gentle yet powerful and often shocking tumble into a world ultimately beyond my comprehension. And in this way, Larp doesn't escape from the world, but rather falls headfirst into its multiplicity. The roles I play and the games I play always know something I never do and never will. Even as a solitary experience, role-playing reveals the other in me to myself. Philosopher and physicist Karen Barra talks about that even when you're touching yourself, you're touching the stranger within. And I think Larp is very accurate in addressing questions of the I, the me, but as a practice of intimacy, Larp could be more articulate about the you. I like to hear more ways of playing that starts with attending to who and what's outside of us, even attending to the experience of playing, recognizing it as a strange creature of its own. And from there, let the role be slowly revealed to us through the relationship we move through and move with, as the stranger generously offers feedback to our attention. And in this way, embodying is less of an immersion, but rather a dance, a conversation. It is less of a fake it till you make it, but more a fake you till you make me. So what's at stake here? Role-playing is not an a la carte experience. You can't dial in exactly what you want. And because of that, I think more than consent, it requires trust. Trust is admitting the relationship between individuals knows something that the individuals cannot. From the view of the sovereign, the intact selfhood, this is an unsettling and even frightening prospect, as it is beyond something we can consent to. We can't fully decide to trust, rather trust creeps up on us to gently hold our hands and nibble on our skin. We are less creators of our experiences or world builders. We are at best gardeners or lovers. But we can get better at gardening and daring how to love. Because what's particular about the spiritual handbooks from the Middle Ages, that even at the height of visionary and erotic overload, they still insisted on a pedagogical dimension. Even accounts that I just felt very ill and received a vision usually proceeds on like highly technical explanations of that. So there was a pretty buff bookshelf next to which you felt ill, probably. So for LARPers, this is further proof that you can be horny and still remain a complete nerd. Just get a book, invite your friends over, and you're ready to roll. And in this way, and there has been collective practices about this that I don't have time to get into, but you can come and ask me about it. And as a final note, I just want to land on this, that maybe there's more in Larp's infatuation with the Middle Ages, beyond Tolkien, courtly romance, and that bird mass that plagued, you know what I mean. Because there seems to be a kindred sense in how we study this unfathomably wide world. A world we can never fully control, but we can get better at tasting its comings and going. Spiritual intimacy and playing are the same as much as they are impossible to fully master, which make practice just as much a thing of effort as a thing of waiting, surrender, and grace. Playing is often about the exquisite pleasure we find in first admitting the impossibility of something ever being achievable and then going for it anyway. A curious leap towards a stranger and a cry for a new kind of joy. At times, this brings violence and even tragedy, but I feel that this is also our hope. These are the notes. Thanks a lot.